attention. Here was Kyle Shanahan in the postgame yesterday talking about the injury.
Yeah, it's always tough, especially when it's a big one like that. It was, it happened to Jimmy a couple years ago. That was a little more towards the end of the game at Kansas City. But yeah, it's tough. You feel for someone so bad. It's it's a sad moment. But you don't have time to sit there and think about it. You got to get right back to the game. And I thought the guys did a real good job of that. But and we were real happy about the win. But it was a little sombering once you get in the locker room and you see them and stuff. So
now, this was not a compound fracture, which means, according to my Twitter friend Doc Flynn, it could be 4 to 6 months. So he can come back likely sooner than he would have if this was a compound fracture. Compound fracture, of course, means the bone actually broke the skin, which is never good. So you heard
just
from
hearing that.
It's brutal. So you heard from Shanahan. Now let's hear from Lance's teammate Deebo Samuel.
At first, I really didn't know what happened. I just seen Trey on the ground, hoping he can get up. But just seeing all the work Trey put in from last year to this year, it kind of broke my heart. Pray for him. He's a great guy. That's what makes him so special.
I think we overlooked that part, right? The idea of this guy putting in the work, working his tail off to be the starting quarterback, finally gets to accomplish his dream and be a starting quarterback in the NFL. In game two early on, he's out. He's done for the season. Obviously just brutal for Trey Lance. And as Deebo said, he was brokenhearted over the thing because he knows the work that Lance has put in. The other part of this, of course, Ramie, is I saw a lot of people on Twitter and I saw a lot of people on our text group message yesterday texting about Kyle Shanahan and the play calling. And some people kind of pointing to Shanahan as being the guilty party, kind of putting Trey Lance into the line of fire, so to speak. Shanahan was questioned about that yesterday from, of course, Grant Cohn.
Back to Trey's injury real quick. It was 2nd and 8. You ran in between the tackles. Your running backs were running well at that point. Why did you feel that was the best call for that situation?
Would have been better if it was 2nd and 4. Is that what you're implying?
Linebackers. It's not like he's 3rd and 6 going against a nickel defense that's expecting a pass. It's just a different situation. When?
Because there's a few options on the play. It could have been a handoff. The DN went up to play. It's the exact same play we ran 3 plays before that where Deebo got a 52-yarder. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And nickel, there's not a play out there where there's not a linebacker on the field. So that really doesn't change anything.
We got more from Shanahan in a minute, but just to give you some context, Ramie, because I know you just joined us 3 months ago. Grant Cohn, a little bit of a poop stir, right? He likes to kind of feed the flames. And there's no doubt.
I've seen some of his poop stirring go viral outside the local market before I got here. I'm somewhat familiar with him.
And there's absolutely zero doubt that Shanahan, you could tell by the laugh at the very beginning of his answer. Like, oh, here we go.
This guy.
This guy. I know what you're all about. I know who you are. So you could tell that Shanahan didn't want any of this. But he continued. He gave us more, and the more he spoke about it, the more it seemed like he was getting a little bit angry.
Just because, you guys watch other teams in this league?
And
Buffalo does it all the time.
You watch the game?
With their quarterback, it's pretty normal play. It's part of football, and it's unfortunate that he hurt his ankle on it. But it's very normal ran play. You guys should watch some other people.
He gave him the old, you even watch football, bro.
And then he said you should watch other people. you guys should go and watch other teams and go and watch other quarterbacks. So you don't pay attention to football? That was a normal play. Watch Buffalo. They do it all the time with Josh Allen.
People will hit you with that on Twitter. It's rare a coach will hit you with the old, do you even watch sports, bro?
Do you watch football?
Do you even know?
Do you watch the game of football?
You a casual? What are you?
All right, so Ramie, I haven't even asked you this question off the air, so I have no idea how you feel about it.
Yeah.
How much is Trey Lance's injury on Kyle Shanahan's play calling?
Here's the thing. You were we weren't the only ones, anybody who talks about the 49ers on any regular basis, which going into this season was seemingly everybody, which is why we had the Trey Lance hype train. The point of this style of football that we thought and eventually saw Kyle Shanahan run with Trey Lance, put him in the line of fire, put him in danger, and put him at risk for injury. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I don't think Kyle Shanahan could deny that in an honest moment, that the way that he was using Trey Lance, 3 runs, 3 passes to 12 runs when they took him when he was taken out of the game by an injury, and 3 of those runs were by Trey Lance. It put him at risk for injury. The question you have to ask yourself was that a necessity? Because I've been talking also, one of the points I keep going back to is this balancing act of developing a first-year starter quarterback with a world of potential versus a team that's Super Bowl ready right now. And I think Kyle Shanahan looked at this and went, okay, he has some holes in the passing game, but we can maybe make up for that by running him a little bit more than I normally would in my offense.
Right.
You know, so that's the balancing act I think Kyle Shanahan was trying to pull off, and that's the risk you were running in that balancing act.
Yeah, I mean, look, some of this is absolutely on Shanahan. There's no way that you can say he's completely scot-free of any of the quote-unquote blame. When you call run plays for your quarterback in between the tackles, this is what can happen. It is part of the risk that
other
you take.
Other teams do it, Nick. Do you even watch football, bro?
Yeah.
Do you even watch other teams?
And I would say that those other teams and those other quarterbacks to Shanahan, my comment would be, well, it doesn't make those teams right either. It doesn't mean that it's a good idea for Buffalo to run those plays. We just talked about it after game 1 of the season watching the Bills-Rams. Allen took a lot of shots in that game unnecessarily, which he admitted to.
That'll catch up to him.
So, I mean, when you run your quarterback in between the offensive tackles, there's lots of legs and arms and bodies. Things can happen. You're not running to the outside, allowing him to get out of bounds. You're not running him towards maybe, defensive backs. You're running him into big bodies and linebackers, and things can happen. I also think, Ramie, you hit the nail on the head. When you look at how this offense was put together, and what they were calling, it's rather obvious to me, they didn't trust Trey Lance as a pocket quarterback. We talked about it after game 1. When you run the football 12 times and you throw it 3 times, that is already telling us what the game plan is going to be. We're going to run the football an awful lot today. We're not going to put this in the hands of Lance. He's not going to throw the football 25 to 30 times. Now, Seattle's run defense isn't good. We talked about it on Friday, so it made sense. But that tells me they felt a lot better about throwing the football when Jimmy G got into the game, because when you looked at the numbers, it was much more even when Garoppolo got in. So, yes, they are coaching around Lance, so to speak. And part of that is running the football an awful lot more than they might have with Jimmy Garoppolo. And the result of that is your quarterback takes more hits. Your quarterback is more susceptible to injury.
And if you were looking at your team and being honest with yourself and going, we're not, like if you're the Jaguars and you're going, we're not going anywhere this year, you let him go out there and sling that thing all over the field and learn his lessons the hard way. You know what I mean? But if you take that tact with Trey Lance and you watch him go through those growing pains, Nick Bosa and the rest of these guys, they're going to be looking at this and go, why am I literally breaking myself every week for a team that can win a Super Bowl right now while you're letting Trey Lance go out there and throw football games away? You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a hard thing to sell to a locker room. And once you lose a locker room, you've lost them. And once you've lost them, that might be your job that's lost next.
Want your thoughts on this? 916-339-1140. Of course, you can hit us up on the YouTube channel as well, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. How much of the blame do you put on Shanahan for this Trey Lance injury? I don't put most of the blame on him. I just don't. Things happen in football. But when you are calling run plays in between the tackles for your quarterback multiple times in a game, you do run the risk of hurting him. Ramie and I talked about that before the season even kicked off and said, how much do you run this guy? Because he's more susceptible with the more hits that he takes. Another couple of notes about this game. I thought they were much, much better in the trenches. I thought their offensive line played better. They were obviously more disciplined. They only had 1 penalty flag all day long versus 12 in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
That was great to see. I thought they ran the football very, very well. Ty Davis, Price, and Wilson I thought were good. And it was nice to see Brandon Ayuk be a part of the passing game. And the way you want to end the game is the way they ended that game yesterday, just running the football down Seattle's throat.